So now the left wing knows that the blacks are beating up the Jews. They know it's happened. They're like, oh yeah, apparently this has been going on like all week. Oh my god, like all month? This is terrible. What's going on? It must be Donald Trump and Richard Spencer making the people hate the Jew. And so my whole thing now is, even with somebody like Tim Pool finally having to admit that really crime and race have a link so ironclad, so titanium chain, that my whole thing is, so how did the right wing know this? How did everybody on the right wing know that for multiple years that you could find incidences and footage going back a decade of black people assaulting religious Jews? That when you actually look up who does stuff to synagogues, it's as likely that it's a black person as a white person in the United States of America. That black people actually have a shocking high level of anti-Semitism and fetishize Islam and quasi-Islamic organizations and thinking. And that once you look into, especially with black Americans, such groups and such thinking, it is the complete and total merging of anti-white Marxist thinking and Islamic stuff with a it's breaded in Islam. It's making the white man come out of pocket, and it's breaded in Islam. It's in a pita bread. It's in on a falafel. Was it? It's wrapped in pita. So the thing that now, will somebody like Tim Pool and Subverse actually try to discuss with somebody like Colin Flaherty, that you really basically have blacks and Latinos, and it's mostly it's black youth of the present generation are the cross-racial crime, the cross-racial assaulters, the cross-racial killers, the cross-racial robbers, that you just don't find white kids robbing black kids. You don't find white kids sticking up Latinos. You just don't find this. You don't find it the same way. And that this is obviously a multi-generational racial resentment issue having to do with blacks and Latinos being extremely resentful of white people. Now, sometimes you'll find, especially in like a place like California, things like the Cambodians or the Filipinos will have kind of a thing like this with white people, but usually by the adult years, people like that they kind of grow out of that shit. They just kind of take it as like, really, white people don't really bother me. They really don't like try to make my day harder. At some point, they just kind of seem to get over it. Not with blacks and Latinos. And this is really shown in the voting demographics, and it's shown especially with people like the reaction on Twitter right now to Kamala and Castro dropping out. I mean, that Castro and his brother are just overtly just two guys who really have a bug up their ass about white people. And a big part of it is obviously it's because Castro's a diminutive manlet who's effeminate looking. It's just so pretty looking. It's just ridiculous. It's just like, it's like, wow, and you're gay, and you're gay, and you're gay. So now I'm really curious about how even the moderates will handle race. On the right, there's red elephants There's the America First bunch. They've long been ahead on this. I knew this was coming. People who've been watching, you all heard this years ago, where I was talking about the Black Hebrew Israelites, about this is Tariq Nasheed. These people, it's not like knowing about other people and knowing about their differences and just sort of respecting what's inherently different or something, and it's not like the kind of the sunny way of people of European descent in America. No, this is those motherfuckers be weird. Those motherfuckers smell weird. Those motherfuckers talk weird. It's not smart thinking about other people's. In such great numbers that it's really like it's just shocking, and especially being that these are mostly populations confined to urban areas. So it's like you'll have these people grow up with Jews and Chinese people, and they hate the fuck out of Jews and Chinese people. You're like, why? For of course for whites it's like, well, but you grew up around them. Why would you have some kind of animosity toward them? And so for white people, it'd be like, oh, something happened. And that's what always, these writers, the communist Hebrew writers, who are always trying to guilt white people into establishing some central committee that will take everybody's rights away equally. These writers are always like, oh, it must have been that these people did something, and so, oh, it must be that Jewish people are being confused as white people, and white people are mean to black people, so the black people are attacking the Jewish people. It's not that black people just are bigots, because so many of them are so goddamn stupid. They can't put this together. Now, immediately they go to this when it's whites. Oh, because, white people, they're white trash or dumb. They're dumb. They're stupid. They need to calm down. And it's like, didn't you all hear Paris, the Black Panther of hip hop? Don't you all remember what Ice Cube said about Jewish people in the album Kill It Will? Don't you all remember Public Enemy, Professor Griff, the Sister Souljah moment? Like, don't you all remember that book that Farrakhan wrote about the Jews being responsible for the slave trade? Like, don't you all remember when black people in the 90s totally turned on the Jewish community and started choosing Muslim names, that you could look at rap albums liner notes, and there's all these really bizarre names because these are quasi-Masonic, this weird idea like that you name yourself these weird like Islamic names, Born Supreme, Jupiter Akbar, like all just these crazy fucking names. And it's like, no, how did you people miss this? There were Jewish entertainers and producers producing this music. How did you guys not know about this? And then it hit me, no, it was commie Hebrews who were producing this music. And to them, the idea of like, this is just they kind of think that Islam is cool. They think Muhammad's cool. And or something. Or maybe it's that whatever sticks it to whitey. White people don't like Muhammad. In the 90s, in the early 90s, when white people, nobody owned a Quran. There was some guy named Osama bin Laden who was supposedly a danger somewhere. Everyone had heard about this on 60 Minutes, and they heard Bill Clinton say something about it. Outside of that, there was a place called Iran. There were some Palestinians. That's it. That was the Middle East in the early 90s. It was black Americans who were fixated on Islam. They're the ones who all that happened along those, and then being nice to Muslims after 9/11, don't be uncool to Muslims. That was a huge thing. People had no idea. And so this is why now you have these crazy, like, black people acting crazy, trying to say that the white people are oppressing everybody, when white people didn't want to go, they didn't want 9/11, they didn't want to go into these countries, they never wanted to go into Iraq, but white people are being blamed for it all. And even when blacks are killing Jews in the street for a decade, that this has been going on, that still somehow the white man is the problem. When somebody named Colin Flaherty from White Girl Bleed a Lot, and from Don't Make the Black Kids Angry have been talking about this since like the early 2000s. Paul Kersey from Stuff Black People Don't Like has been writing about this for over a decade. You could still look all this up. How the space program fizzled out, but welfare for all the major cities to pay for the damage blacks were doing to them, that became one of the biggest issues of the past generation. And I'm just loving this, that now even Tim Pool is desperate. Oh, it's complicated, but it's complicated. It's like, you need to talk to Colin Flaherty because everybody else knows who he is. You need to stop pretending that this guy doesn't exist. This is the whole weakness of moderates and the left, that at some point they have to admit the person who had the scoop on this is a person I want to pretend doesn't exist, because I am very afraid of the words I'm going to have to speak if I interview this person. If I cover even the information this person has uncovered, I am afraid to speak these words. And we're seeing this definitely throughout all American Judaism. They're afraid to say anything. They gotta blame Trump. They have to. They always keep turning to that. They can't say it. They can't say blacks hate Jews, blacks hate gays. They can't say it. They've gotta win. They've gotta beat Trump, so they'll do anything it takes. People have no idea what happened in the lead up to World War II. The alliances and the agreements people made with one another that they could never take back. They could never take it back, and so they had to cover it up. And it's all being uncovered now by the present administration, and this is why it seems like the supernatural exists to me, because then all this other stuff has to come out too, because it all is bound together. It's all bound together in our times. Nothing, the net is vast, but nothing escapes. People have to understand that Barack Obama's appeals to Islam being, oh, the most beautiful thing I've ever heard were the Islamic words and all this stuff, it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. He was just bullshitting people. He was setting things up for further and further and further division along those lines, where eventually Republicans would be begging Muslims to, please vote. See, we're all into religion, right? Right, guys? Right? And all the Republicans got to do is get white people to actually get up and vote. That's it. That's all they've got to do, is to get white Americans to figure it out and fucking vote. And if that happens, that's it. The sheer numbers of people who don't vote is what the whole issue really is. And that is Bezmenov's demoralization. You don't practice your freedom. That's how they've been getting them. That's how they've been getting all these normal white people. They're just confused. They don't know who's on whose side. That the Middle East is now, they're hearing about all these countries that they only remember from the Bible, and everybody there seems to be crazy. And the guy who was in Iraq with the eye patch, he says this, but then the other guy says that. I don't know. It's so complicated. And now, because we could see the wires, we could see it all happening in time. We know what's going on in so much of the world, but it's hard for people to follow. It's hard for people to get their mind around. And the way that the personalities on the internet, that only the brave and the bold will survive. And those who will say their name, they'll speak it. They're not afraid. They don't think that if you say Arctos, that the bear will show up in your fucking village. You know, that you could say the word bear and it won't conjure one. And you could say the blacks hate the Jews and the blacks hate the gays and they beat them up because they hate them. You need to say it. You need to say it. Because they hate them. And of course, it's a not all. As in all cases, not all. But this is consistent across the entire African diaspora. And in the entire African diaspora, that about 2/3 of these people are all people who come from people educated by white people, by their white society. That these are people who've lived around their own black people, around white people who live around black people. They were taught from the white school system. They've been employed, and why do they hate Jews and gays? Why aren't the white people, with all their great numbers, with this huge movement of the neo-Nazi and all this stuff, why aren't the whites assaulting the gays and the blacks? Why aren't the whites assaulting the gays and the Jews? Why aren't the whites running off the taco and empanada trucks at the, hey, you aren't legal, get on out here, yeah. And why is that not happening? It's not happening because white people like other groups of people. That's why they make sure to publish many translations of other people's ancient works and insist on their children taking some kind of course in studying other people. Ain't gonna work. At some point, the moderates are going to have to say, apparently, blacks in large numbers have a hate boner for Jews and gays and will physically assault them because of their hatred. Motherfucker's gonna have to face this.